Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am joined once again by Powell Robinson, who's here to talk about a different film. We had you on before to talk about Mr. Crockett, but now we're here to talk about the upcoming VHS Halloween anthology, which will be on Shudder October 3rd. So, Powell, so happy to have you with us back again today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Well, it's a pleasure. And as I was just talking about, you just talking about how amazing it was to see VHS on the big screen in at Beyond Fest, and also just coming off a really wonderful, fantastic Fest High. But I'm going to go back a little bit to the basics of kind of how did you get, how did you and Anna first connect for the Coochie Coochie Coo segment?
Yeah, Anna and I have been really close friends since college, actually. We shot a thesis together then, and since I've shot mostly everything she's directed as long as I was available for it. We did a movie called Appendage for Hulu a couple of years ago, and we, just always been working together.
Oh, that's awesome. It's kind of a common trend, I think, with filmmakers is that they tend to find people that they're very comfortable with, that they kind of can have a good second hand with, and shorthand with, and continue collaborating with them. So when you've done a lot of you do a lot of different kinds of work. You've done music videos, you do kind of proof of concepts, you do feature length. This is more of the found footage arena.
Yep.
How is, from your perspective as kind of the DOP, what is the difference in approach when you take when it's coming to found footage versus kind of a narrative feature where the camera's kind of more objective?
Yeah, I mean, this was a massive unlearning process for me and to Anna both. That's the only way I can think to describe it, where everything that you normally would do is wrong to do here. And so when we got started, there were plenty of takes where I was like, that one looked too good. Like we gotta make sure this feels like two 17-year-old girls are handling a camera, both of whom are not professional camera operators. And so we were doing a lot of fun stuff for this. I mean, it was like uh, every step of the way was trying to find tricks to make it feel like we were doing it wrong on purpose. And so I was doing fake camera handoffs where one of the girls would step in front of the camera and then reach for it, and I would lift it up and like step to the right and then put it down like they just picked it up. And we would, we had my AC doing things like messing up focus on purpose, like trying to act like autofocus in the camera. Yeah, just a lot of little tricks along the way, including just, you'll notice plenty of segments when you watch it where, like, normally when you're filming a movie, the point is to have a nice, close up over the shoulder where you can watch people have a conversation. But in real life, people having a real intimate conversation, the last thing they're doing is paying attention to what they're actually looking at. And so I had to fight every instinct to like keep a nice, thirds frame kind of thing on somebody and put it on my shoulder, hold it with one hand, and just like throw it off to the side while they were talking. But only so much that you barely lost their face. Like you go, there's
Right.
like there's plenty of moments where if you watch it back now, you'll see like the conversation's like half of someone's head turned diagonally or something. So you're still getting to watch them say it, but it doesn't quite feel like anyone was actually paying attention doing it. It was a lot of active non-activity.
I mean, it's so interesting too because you're like when you talk about unlearning things, it's like the process of doing that, it's like you embed these behaviors, they almost become muscle memory. And so it's almost like
Yeah.
you're fighting your natural reactions to put the camera in a certain way. And especially when you're trying to simulate kind of how non, certified camera operators would hold a camera. We often are like really bad at kind of getting things in focus or putting things right in the center of the frame. So when you think about like like the trial and error process, what was that like to kind of figure out some of those movements that you were going to make them feel more natural? Because one of the things that the best VHS segments, and I would consider this one of them, do is that they feel, and this one in particular, feel like you're kind of walking through a funhouse. Like it's all happening in real time. And obviously, we know these productions are made through a series of cuts and and edits, but that illusion of timing is all about making sure that things have consistency. So, how did you kind of trial and error some of these things to make sure you get the right, natural reactions?
Totally. Weirdly, it was actually combining more shots. I feel like when we planned it out in the overheads, there were a lot of stitch points that we'd given ourselves in case we couldn't run full scenes all the way through. And the actual stitch points that are in there are not ones we were really expecting. And so there were plenty of moments that we actually were like, well, if we just do all of these three sequences as a real oneer, it might feel better for the actors and for the scares than if we tried to like do it in pieces. And so we ended up combining more than we thought, and we ended up building ourselves stitch points in places we didn't think we'd need them.
Hmm.
And that, you know, that just sort of starts to happen organically as you're going. And I would say it culminated on what became probably the biggest wonder in the whole thing, which is when they go from the kitchen reveal of mommy all the way up the stairs into the pink room, then the cheerleader, then all the way down the hallway into the final room, and then so that all is actually like continuous until we get into the diaper room where you know the
Wow.
purple one, yeah, and that was supposed to be like only from that kitchen to the stairs, and then from like the stairs to the pink room, and then we were gonna hide away from like that pink room to the cheerleader, and we realized we'd already dressed and lit. Well, luckily the lighting was all just a flash on the camera, but dressed the house, blacked all the windows out. We had the room to do it that way, and it just started to feel better. So I would say there wasn't as much trial and error as there was just trial and then extending the trial and then extending the trial and then just seeing how much we could get away with as we went.
I mean, I think again, like it is so seamless and natural, which I think is a correct testament to kind of the work you all were doing, but also on the editing side.
Oh yeah.
How involved are you with the edit process, considering kind of how much the camera matters, in regards to like making this illusion of, found footage?
The edit less so than the final tape out transfer that we did. Alex has edited the last two movies I've shot for Hulu. He did both Appendage and Mr. Crockett, and so we're super close friends. I've known him since high school, actually.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I think more so was just learning where we could give him things like he does a lot of the effects as well on the movies that we've worked on in the past. He's a very good VFX artist, and so he was with us for a lot of it. He was actually editing upstairs as we went, and so he could check like if the stitch points were going to line up. So
Wow.
if we went, he'd grab a frame, line it up with the last shot, and like test it out to make sure it worked. And so there were things where once the flickering flashlight comes into play, I made sure that it occasionally went full black so that he could have an actual organic looking cut point that no one really thinks about because it's flickering so fast. As long as you do it on the one frame it's black on, it
Right.
looks, you know, as long as my frame is roughly the same. So it wasn't that I was involved in the edit after we left set, but we were all pretty involved in the edit while we were there because we were constantly checking our work and making sure we'd lined certain plates up right, and you know, giving him what he needs to stitch us through the places we weren't expecting to need to stitch.
I mean, that's kind of an insane thought to think, it's the same thing to think about is that we're now in a stage where we can actually do shoot to edit in that moment and then not have to go back and do a reshoot, or kind of make sure, for continuity's sake. So I feel like, the expediency of how these things can get made, do you feel like this is, did it make the process a lot faster being able to do it that way? Or does it slow it down because you're kind of having to constantly like, wait for the edit, have it come back down and then rethink what you're going to do next?
Luckily, I think it was only helpful in this case, especially because we weren't doing things like doing full scene edits and overs and wides and be like, oh, we got to go back and reshoot a full scene. It was just
Hmm.
like we'd be blocking and then I'd find a camera position and then occasionally on would be like, does this line up with where we picked up the last one from? We'd go check a frame, come back down. It wasn't a lot of bouncing back and forth. It was just sort of safety net for finding the transition points.
Yeah, and another thing I think is really fascinating about again filming the found footage, and particularly one like this where it's so much action packed into a short period of time, is you have to. I'm imagining you have a lot of collaboration with folks kind of on the production design side to make sure that certain things come into frame at the right time because it's all about timing. So how did you work with those, the folks kind of doing the set decoration and moving around to make sure that things were, not just the actors in the right place, but also the materials for the set and the props were where they needed to be.
Yeah, Danny Erb, who did the PD, is it's this crew in general was very fun because it was just all friends. Like it was pretty miraculous how it worked out. Danny and I were on the same dorm floor in college, and we've also since
It's
worked
like a
together.
reunion.
Yeah, he's he directed for a long time and is coming back around to it, but he's worked as a production designer also in the meantime, and so you know, he and I have a very good collaboration. He's also a really talented video glitch artist. So he's actually the guy who did the credits with Alex.
Oh, cool.
And so he kind of knows what'll show up well on a transfer versus what won't. So he can, the details, all the distressing on certain things. He knew where to go bigger versus smaller because he knew, like, if I don't go big enough, once you put this to tape, that shit's just all going to disappear. And so a lot of it was based on contrast rather than like fine detail, because that's all that really makes it through the transfer in the end. Is like, is something darkly gross versus bright wall? Is it a blanket? Like, there was a lot of fake shit on this set. It was gross, and it had to be placed very well. But a lot of it was figuring out where to put his resources best. So when we blocked it, he knew the general space and like where we'd be shooting in each room for the most part. But when we blocked it, it would give him a really good sense of. I think my favorite example, the pink room upstairs. When you walk in there, he's like, "Are you going to turn from the door and look straight into the room? Or are you going to move right in?" I said, "There's going to be a moment where I spin in and you see it first." And he goes, "Okay." And he dressed all the toys on the ground to be facing the door. So when I spun around and looked in and the girl clears out of the way, all these like puppet like little toys are looking right at you. And it's like a very small detail, but he was very aware of like sort of our key moments and what to dress to. And also very good about allocating resources where it was needed, because there were scenes like the oh my god, the what's it called, the baby shower room, where like walking and go, it's a girl or whatever, and it was all 100% dressed right in front of me. But if I'd spun around, just nothing. Like he knew that
Wow.
we would be looking there, and so he was able to sort of accurately dress to only specifically what was on camera at any given time, and that's large part due to Anna's really meticulous overheads. So it was a dance between the three of us for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, it all comes off so seamless, and I think that's what makes these so effective, is that they do feel like kind of just these jolts of energy. Um, and thinking about the space you had to work in, were you working on a soundstage with this, so you kind of had the way to kind of dress it as you needed, or were you using an actual location that you had to kind of fit to your process?
No, there's a backlot in Pomona by us that has, suburb street and a bunch of houses you can shoot on. And so everything was shot there. It was a real house, and it was fully dressed, top to bottom in all the spaces. Like, 'cause, once you start combining oneers and you're looking from room to room, I can avoid one wall, but for the most part, you see that house in its entirety. And um, yeah, without the work that team put in, this wouldn't, it wouldn't work as well. Like, because I'm blasting with a flashlight, and there's
Right.
nowhere to hide anything. And so if it doesn't look good when it's getting spotlit, it's not going to look good at all. And I think it's a testament to what they did. That
Yeah,
short
yeah, I
film.
mean, especially working within the confines of like a pre-existing house, like there's already the dimensions that are not built for like a camera rig or kind of how people are going to work around it.
Yeah, tell me
So
about
so the ways
it.
you all to negotiate that, is pretty amazing. And as you think about, how this fits in the greater pantheon of VHS, anthology films. What are some of the things you all kind of thought at a visual and an aesthetic level thought, or how are we going to, adhere to what's kind of come before, but also do our own thing with it? Obviously, the concept itself is so strange and weird and cool and
Yeah,
visually interesting, but how do you kind of take, what kind of work are you doing to think about how does this fit into the greater pantheon of VHS legacy?
yeah, totally. The main thing that helped us out was ours is set in 2009, and so the VHS technology was sort of outdated by then. It was actually all DV cam, and so a
Yep.
lot of the plugins and a lot of the transfers in the past have been to DV or to emulate. Oh, sorry, to VHS or to emulate VHS. And we knew from the beginning there was just no way that would make any sense. In high school, some people were moving over to DSLRs at that point, but for the most part, we were all using prosumery DV cameras or like
Yeah.
point and
Cost prohibitive to DSLR at that point too.
exactly, yeah. And so uh, we developed a pretty cool transfer process that was based on actually no, Kenny from Frame and Reference, the podcast. He put up a YouTube video, and I only saw it because I've done interviews with him in the past. But he's like, I made a tapeless tape out workflow for the XL2. The XL2 is the Canon XL2. It's this big prosumer camera they actually used to shoot 28 days later on,
Oh,
and we used
wow.
it in high school film class. And he had sort of made this jerry rigged like HDMI component video thing that would feed the video from the XL2 to like an external recorder, like an Odyssey and a hard drive. And so you could bypass the tape and you could just shoot using this XL2 right into ProRes, which is super cool if
Wow.
you're a nerd. And we actually tested it to shoot the whole thing on originally, but because it's so many like individual components and sort of like DIY, it was a little too unstable for on-set work, especially with all the VFX. And so like if you bumped it too much, you would lose connection, the video would cut out, and you had to like,
Wow.
you know. So and I was bumping into walls, I was sprinting upstairs, there was no way. So I was like, this is pretty cool though. He if we can find a way to utilize this in post, maybe we can mix, clean on set with this tape thing. And so we took the XL2 and an OLED screen and basically shot it like, edge to edge, frame to frame, and just we called it a tapeless tape out. We would play it and record it into the camera, and it would go to the ProRes and you could ingest it. It would look like we'd shot on the XL2. I mean, the thing we learned along the way was you're basically tricking the camera into thinking it's filming real life. And so
Right.
if you grade it like you'd grade a normal film, like there's a little bit of a lifted black level, or there's a LUT on it that pushes the colors a little bit more cinematic or whatever, the camera gets a little confused and you can see that it's filming a screen because you can see the black levels, you can see the actual elements of the screen. So we did this whole fun process with my colorist, Jared Rosenthal, who actually worked on Crockett on the VHS sections as well. And we've been degrading stuff together now for a couple of years. And so he balanced all the footage to be like go to actual black and actual white, like your eyes would really perceive life. And so, and like no white balance changes, just like totally neutral. So the camera was doing all the work itself.
Huh.
And we basically tricked the XL2 into thinking it was actually filming something in front of it. And it created this really, because it wasn't going to VHS or going to DV tape directly, we didn't lose any, resolution from that, but we got all the funk of a CCD sensor from the
Yeah.
air. And so it actually
Huh.
projects really well and really clearly, and it shows up great on a 4K TV because it's not, a 360p DV or
Right.
480p DV tape or whatever, but yeah, it was his own hassle because it was a long learning process of what worked and what didn't.
I mean, it's so kind of ironic because you're kind of in this process of almost degrading at the same time while we're in this kind of heightened environment of like restoration where people are taking older films that shot on, things shot on film and trying to naturally and organically improve the picture quality without removing kind of those, grain and the artifact that makes it what it is. So fascinating to kind of go backwards with the technology we have today.
Yeah, we were just like
Um,
slap all the funk on it, just cover it in weird artifacts and funk, and just see what happens.
I mean, but it's so, I mean, again, from my perspective, being someone who's not kind of super technical, it looks extremely authentic. So I think it's and more so than we see a lot of kind of those filters that sometimes will be applied, the VHS filter where it's, oh, okay, little bumpy, scratchy lines here and there. Like those things are, I think, almost like looking at, uh, AI to some extent. It's like we're looking at something that's like, okay, I kind of know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
It's not challenging my beliefs. Whereas in this case, even though you're using a lot of practical and VFX, the way it's shot feels so real and looks so great that I think it's like, if it adds to the immersion. I think the VHS segments live and die on that element alone, is that they are all about putting you in this truly awful nightmare.
Yeah.
Um, and when you think about some of the parts you had to shoot for Coochie Coochie Coo, what were some of the most challenging ones, and how did you overcome them?
Um, Most challenging parts. I think a lot of it was, you know, we had a pretty good time. I feel kind of saying it, but like because we were blacking out the house, we were able to shoot a lot of it day for night. And the point of the house was that it was sort of in a void alternate dimension once they step inside. And so we didn't want to see the backyard. We didn't want to like light the whole thing for moonlight and make it like this crazy cinematic deep thing. It was we could kind of just we blacked it all out and we just had a playground for 5 days. We had some funny limitations. The the street that we booked, the location double booked it, and so we planned this whole thing around one of the houses. And when we got there, it was completely covered in scaffolding from another shoot. And so when we're shooting our whole like them exploring the street thing, we just had to ignore that one section of the street. We reblocked it to be based off another house on the street, and it actually ended up working a lot better for the layout. It kind of compressed it and we needed to light less space, so I think we could focus more on what we did see. A lot of game time fixes like that, but I mean, the I would say, I guess, yeah, the toughest one, but also still, it was incredibly fun, and nothing was ever demoralizing or like
Right.
losing a location to a lightning storm or something. It was really just how much problem solving in a fun way does it take was the big one, or that all the way up the stairs, all the way through that room with the cheerleader, and then the timing of mommy coming up the stairs and us catching her but not enough, and then making it all the way down. I mean, it was just a lot of it's. I think an 8-minute shot or so with 4 to 5 different jump scares in it, all built in, and so uh,
It's like a carnival
a
ride.
lot of blocking. And then when you shoot it, it kind of goes quick because it's just continuous. It's like you spend 2 hours figuring out how to plot everything, and then you run it once, and often your first or second take are the most improvisational and unplanned, and they feel the most real. And so it kind of, we did a lot. We shot it a lot of times. Oh, there is a cool thing though, if you want to, when you rewatch it, if you rewatch it, where so we stepped into that room, and Danny had given us a like a video baby monitor, and so it had a working camera, and there's like a little screen on the ground, and we were trying to figure out like how can we actually sell that the one of the girls, it was, I think it was supposed to be Samantha's character at the time, holding the camera. And so we put the monitor in one part of the room where I wouldn't see anything else other than like the wall and the monitor. And then once I walked in, Sam followed in behind me holding a flashlight, like a tiny little flashlight. And we had the camera aimed at the same angle as the monitor was. So as I approached the monitor, she approached the camera. And then when I kneel down, she kneels down. So she watched my blocking. And so when you're watching the monitor, it's her 4 feet behind me doing exactly what I'm doing. So you catch a glimpse
Ah,
in the monitor as we looked around. And it was a really cool little, I think the thing that I hope on rewatches becomes apparent is the amount of detail that's in there, because when you go through the effort to make something look effortless,
yeah.
a lot of it goes kind of, you don't even think about it. Like that little move, you don't think about any of the incredibly complex blocking that went into like 12 frames of us passing by the monitor, and how much work it took to hide her and see me and do all that, you know, that make it feel like you're just in there. And
Yeah.
I hope that comes across, maybe on a rewatch for some people.
I mean, I can only attest to my own personal experience, which is I've watched it twice now. I saw it once at Fantastic Fest, and I watched it again because it's really good. It's highly rewatchable, but it's also one of the strong, like it's a strong starting off segment because it kind of thrusts you into. I mean, obviously you have the Diet Phantasma kind of opening that leads into it, but still, I think that it's such a good kind of entry point for folks. Not even if you've never seen a VHS segment or this, you've seen all of them. I think it really hits all of the points that you want, which is a really good time that feels like a haunted house that you're walking through. And it's, you're absolutely right that the details are often get lost in that first experience because you're so overwhelmed by what you're seeing,
Yeah.
especially in a VHS segment where so much is happening at a given time. So I think too, what I would imagine to be the case is as folks will be watching this, they will pick up on more of those little things.
Yeah.
But I think what the testament is that they'll see through it and be like, wow, I still can't pick apart where the cut is or where the stitching is. It just looks so good. So for you and the rest of the team, like should be some super proud of this thing. And I hope, I feel like it's going to do extremely well, not just on Shudder, but hopefully we'll get a Blu-ray release. Is there anything else you're working on that you're able to talk about or excited to share?
Yeah, so on October 11th, a movie that I shot called The Red Mask is playing at Screamfest. It's having its North American premiere. It played Fright Fest last month, and then cooking some stuff up with Anna for the future, and maybe some with Brandon too from Mr. Crockett. So things
Awesome.
things in the works for sure.
Awesome. Well, Powell, it's always a pleasure talking with you. I hope we can do it again. I'm going to make sure to check out, you say The Red Mask? That's what it's called?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
I'll make sure to check that one out because I think we're doing some Screamfest coverage this year.
Cool.
Um, and again, reminding everybody that you can see VHS on Shudder this Friday, October 3rd. Please watch it. It's so much fun. Easily in the top three for sure, maybe even top two as far as VHS anthologies go. And Pal, your camera work, especially I want to call out, you did a Gambit proof of concept that is so fucking cool.
Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate that.
and if anyone's interested, check out Pal's Instagram and just look at some of the work he's doing because this is it's mind blowing. I know you do work in music videos as well, and just the stuff you're putting together and the teams you're working with are putting together some really impressive stuff. So I can't wait to see more from you.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, thanks, pal.
Yep.